Hey folks, this is Kelani. We're in a bit of a strange spot right now. We're still waiting on the patch 8.2 PTR, but we'll be getting a huge information dump sometime today. The new raid is still a week away, but we have a few bits and bobs we can do in-game to work towards it, and the story quests that explain what we're doing in the Crucible of Storm are available right now, so at least we can keep ourselves a little occupied while we wait. There's also some events going on this week which you might want to know about, so let's have a chat about everything that's been happening. Let's start with the Crucible of Storm's questline, because that's some new content you can sink your teeth into right this very second. These quests became available this week, which was a bit of a surprise to me if I'm being honest with you. I kind of expected this to happen last week so that the lead up to the new raid would be a 2-week deal instead of just a 1-week deal. But when you get through all of the quests, you'll probably understand why this wasn't spread over 2 weeks. It's not going to take you very long at all to get through these quests, but they are still quite a bit of fun, and perhaps more importantly, they explain what's going on right now and why we end up in the Crucible of Storms, facing off a couple of no-name bosses. To start these quests, you need to find a Naga attack world quest. There was one in Zuldazar yesterday, and another one in Zuldazar today, so it wouldn't be crazy to assume that these Naga attack world quests should be available in at least one zone at any given time. Hop on over to the world quest area and kill a few Naga. You don't even have to finish the world quest if you don't want to, and you should find a medallion with some encrypted Naga orders. Now, I don't know anyone who speaks Naga, personally, and chances are you don't either, so you need to take that medallion to Collector Kojo to see if they can help us out at all. From there, you will embark upon an interesting journey, which many of us probably wouldn't have seen all the way through because talking to a potentially evil force bound within a dark dagger doesn't really sound like the best idea in the world, but at least all of the Shadow Priests that played in Legion get to reunite with their beloved artifact. You don't really have any choice as you work your way through the vast majority of this questline, but you do have an interesting choice at the end to keep or discard part of the quest reward. I won't spoil anything else, you'll have to make those decisions for yourself after you get through the quests. Just know that this questline does set up the raid quite nicely, it explains why the Crucible of Storms is important, and it's definitely opening the story up for some cool twists later on down the line. You may also get a little peek at one of our next big foes too, so be sure to get these quests done before the raid opens up next week. As for the raid itself, it's just a 2-boss raid, but both bosses do seem quite complicated. There's a lot of different abilities being fired off all over the place, and that's just on normal and heroic. The week after the raid opens up, both mythic and the looking for raid difficulties will become available, and it should be another fun round of Twitch streams as the top tier guilds race for world first. Both bosses have quite unique loot with special abilities, and the first boss drops items which are 5 item levels above Desert Lore gear, and the second boss is 10 item levels above Desert Lore gear. So Mythic Crucible will drop 420 and 425 pieces. That's some pretty huge loot right there, so I'm interested to see how that affects guild's progress in Mythic Desert Lore, specifically on Mythic Jaina. But there's always the chance that Mythic Crucible will be a super tough nut to crack. Only time will tell. This week is also the first week that the Darkmoon Faire has been back in town for patch 8.15. There's a few new activities to take part in, most notably the roller coaster has finally finished its construction, so we have 2 ways to get our super special Wii buff now. You can ride the boring old plain merry-go-round, or you can hop on the super exciting brand spanking new roller coaster. I know which ride I'm going to hop on every time I visit the fair from now on. It might give you a few issues if you're sensitive to motion sickness though, as it forces you into first person mode, so be careful with that. There's also some weird stuff going on in the waters around the Darkmoon Faire, so if you like to go fishing for some tasty Darkmoon Daggermore, you might stumble upon one of the new fish heads. Sadly, these aren't a toy, or a collectible. Once you fish one up, they only last for 1 day in your bag, and they're consumed when you use it, and the buff lasts for 60 minutes. So not the most reliable or sustainable look in the world, but you can in fact run around with a giant fish head stuck onto your body while the Darkmoon Faire is active for the foreseeable future. This new item might be tied to the storyline that's going to unfold sometime in the future relating to the old gods, as the fair definitely seems to have ties to the old gods in one form or another, but I hope that whatever is happening in the waters around the fair, that something really cool actually comes of it. If nothing ever happens with this little thread or story point and it's eventually forgotten in 6 months' time, well, that would just be boring, wouldn't it? Something else you can do to keep yourself occupied this week is time walking. If you watched my previous video, you might already be farming time walking, trying to get your hands on that shiny infinite time reaver, but there's another use that time walking has, and it does it incredibly well. Leveling. You get a crazy amount of experience from time walking dungeons these days, over half a level per dungeon from 110 to 120. That's some crazy fast leveling, especially if you tack on your upgraded heirlooms, a Warfront potion, experience gem, and the Darkmoon Faire buff. These two events don't overlap very often, so if you have any alts you want to level up right now, and you just can't bring yourself to go through island expeditions or BfA dungeons or even questing, time walking might just be your answer. It's probably faster than the majority of other leveling methods right now. You can group up with max level characters without any real issue, so you can tag along to your guildie's 5 runs for their weekly quests, and you get to experience some of the old dungeons. Not to mention you have a chance to get the time reaver mount on any character at any level. You get to collect badges which you can use to gear up quickly at max level on your alts, or save up towards some more of the interesting rewards like mounts and toys. And you're leveling at the same time. You're hitting at least 4 birds with one stone. And again, the Darkmoon Faire gives you that extra little boost, so there's no time like the present. These two events won't overlap again for another 4 months, so this is definitely going to be the fastest that it will be for a little while. This is definitely how I'll be spending a good chunk of my time this week, that and the patch 8.2 PTR when it finally becomes active. So I've been waiting for quite a while at this point to see 8.2 on the PTR. I made a video a little bit ago comparing the time between live patches and PTR cycles and all that jazz. What it boiled down to was fairly simple. Battle for Azeroth is significantly behind the content curve of Legion. Patches take longer to arrive on the PTR after the previous patch goes live, patches stay in the PTR cycle for longer, and the overall time between patches is quite a bit longer too. That all adds up to a slower content pace, which we're definitely feeling in Battle for Azeroth. But as I've said many times, patch 8.2 is probably going to be make or break for BfA, and the dev team want to make sure they do this patch right. A lot is riding on this, which is why they're dictating how this next chapter unfolds. If this were any other patch, it would probably have been pushed to the public test rounds without too much hubbub. But they're being careful with this patch. There's a live stream which is happening, or is happened depending on when you watch this, today at 11 AM PDT, where senior designer Jeremy Fiesel will be giving us a preview of the content to expect in the Rise of Azshara patch. They're telling us what is coming our way, instead of leaving it to the data miners to try and piece together. They want to control the narrative on this one, and I don't blame them one bit. Can you imagine if we just dove straight into data mining and found something a little weird or cryptic or bad? It would be torches and pitchforks, and I don't really think they can afford that to happen. So tune into the live stream, see what happens, and we'll go from there. But this live stream basically delayed the PTR once again, so I hope it's going to be worth it. I fully expect we'll see the PTR open up right after the livestream ends, or maybe even partway through, being able to go through all of the new content coming in the next patch, detail how the new Heart of Azeroth is going to work, and show us every reason they have to get excited for this next patch, and then in the same breath say, and you can find all of this available right now on the PTR for testing. That would be huge. More people would probably want to hop onto the PTR to get testing right then, which is also super important to get the testing info that they need to make this patch the best patch it could be. Compare that to a scenario where they put all of this shiny new content on display for us, and then tell us we have to wait another week before we can actually get our hands on any of it. That just gives us time to become disinterested and find something else we'd rather do. I'm really hoping they open the floodgates on this one, but again, we'll just have to tune into the live stream and see how they want to handle it. Patch 8.2 on the PTR any later than next week would be a disaster though, in my opinion. I am wondering if they have something a little bigger in the pipeline though. Several high-profile content creators were invited to Irvine for something we don't know anything about. yet. We'll probably find out tomorrow or in the next week, but it looks like they really want to go all out with patch 8.2 if that's what this is all about. Sadly, I don't know anything about it personally, but I'm sure it's just because my invite got lost in the mail. It's okay, I didn't want a super special sneak peek at the future of Blizzard anyway, but I would keep your eyes peeled for something exciting. Even though I'm super stoked for the chance to get onto the PTR, see how the new heart system works and check out the new zones, delaying the PTR until today or possibly even next week does worry me quite a bit. When I was looking at timelines, this week was the best week they could start the PTR cycle. Next week overlaps with the new raid, the week after that overlaps with the Mythic raid opening, and any later than this week would push back the potential release date of patch 8.2 even further if they had a decent PTR cycle. I was hoping for a mid-June release date, and that's how the numbers were lining up, but as the weeks go by with no PTR in sight, the patch also gets pushed back further and further. We might actually be looking at a July release date at this rate, which is pretty disappointing if you ask me, but it also kind of makes sense. A lot of Blizzard patches release alongside other MMO expansions or large patches, and they have done for quite a while now no matter what they say. Whether that's because they want to compete directly, or just because those weeks are good for business for any game in the genre, we probably won't get a solid answer to, but Final Fantasy XIV has another expansion launching on July 2nd, so we might have to wait a little bit longer until the first week of July to actually get our hands on patch 8.2, but the PTR should be up any day now, at least I'm hoping so. I'm super curious to see how the live stream goes and what new information comes our way. When do you think they'll update the PTR? Right after the stream, or will they wait until next week? How many alts are you going to level up this week with the super combo of Time Walking and the Darkmoon Faire? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.